I'm not your butterfly, I'm not your picture bride. I am a samurai woman who holds up half the sky. I haven't bowed my head, I haven't bound my feet. I have endured the heat, I'm not afraid to leave. I am. I have crossed waters wide, I have climbed mountains high. I carried you inside my heart when I took a stride. I am your memory, stories of you and me, moment of breaking free. So you can be, you can be. I am. I am. I am. Hey, I am. I do not know my age, I am born every day. My spirit can't be gauged, I'm living to create. I am. I am. Hey, hey, hey. I am. Ooh, I am.
All right. So let me bring everyone back on screen. Welcome to the talk, everybody. Great. All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the virtual presentation of Not Your Butterfly by Nobuko Miyamoto. Joining Nobuko in conversation tonight are Gonzalez and Traci Kato-Kiriyama, as well as our moderator, Deborah Wong. Before I turn things over to Deborah, I would like to do some short announcements. We do have signed book plates available for those who buy a copy of tonight's featured book, and you can do that by clicking on the green purchase button directly below the viewer's screen. It'll take you to our website where you can complete your purchase. Just make sure to write signed book plate in the order comments when you do. Also, if you have any questions for our guests tonight, just use the Ask a Question box at the very bottom of the screen. You can also vote for any questions you find interesting, and they will make their way to the top of the list. Okay, so let me briefly introduce Deborah, and then she'll take things away from there. So Deborah Wong is the professor of ethnomusicology at the University of California, Riverside. She's the author of Louder and Faster, Sounding the Center, and Speak It Louder. And she's also the editor of Not Your Butterfly. So Deborah, take things away.
Thank you, Rira. We have so been looking forward to this tonight. Everyone, thank you for coming. We're here tonight to celebrate the release of Nobuko Miyamoto's memoir. And let me tell you a bit about Nobuko, and also just to say that I'm going to be a little bit of a, sort of traffic direction tonight. But quite frankly, these three women know each other really well and have already spent years talking with one another. And this is going to be fun, is really what I'm saying, because they're already talking to one another. This is like we're picking up midstream in a conversation that's already taking place between the three of them. Tonight, we're going to hear Nobuko reflect a bit on her extraordinary life. And frankly, you need to read her book to get, the full sweep of her life, and I should note that life is still underway, full tilt. And, yeah, exactly. You need to read how she has woven together, all the elements of her life, music and dance, social justice work, and, a connection across difference, always. You probably don't really need me to tell you about Nobuko, but let me just say that she is a true community-based artist. She's absolutely well known for that. She's a third-generation multi-ethnic Japanese-American songwriter, dancer, choreographer, activist. She's a legendary figure in the Asian American movement. In 1973, she recorded an album titled A Grain of Sand, which is widely regarded as the first album of intentionally Asian American music. Nobuko is the founder and artistic director of Great Leap, a community-based nonprofit arts organization in LA, which is now over 40 years old, which is saying something for any nonprofit org. She is widely known and she is beloved in the Asian American community across the United States. She's covered in awards and honors. She's constantly being asked to speak at community events, because she's a mover, she's a shaker, she's this compassionate visionary. And we want to be taught by her because she does it through music and through dance. She teaches us through the arts how to stand up for social justice, she teaches us how to name injustice through music, through dance. She teaches us how to connect respectfully across difference and how to build solidarities and all of that through music, dance, and performance. Now, Nobuko always has several projects going on at the same time. Any of you who know her know this about her. She always has several things going on. But 2021 has been a particularly important and eventful year for Nobuko. In January of this year, she released a double CD album, which is really a 50-year compendium of her work as a musician and dancer. And the album also contains quite a bit of new material that she put together just in the last couple of years. And of course, her memoir, which just dropped 2 weeks ago. So 2021, good year for Nobuko. Now tonight you're going to hear 3 artivistas in conversation. And as I already said, they are deeply connected to one another. Let me briefly tell you that Marta Gonzalez is a singer, songwriter, artivista, scholar. She's associate professor of Chicanx Latinx studies at Scripps College. Last year, her book came out. Oh my God, it's beautiful. It's such a good read. It's titled Chicana Artivistas, Music, Community, and Transborder Tactics in East Los Angeles. Marta has performed on and conceptualized, like countless albums at this point. And here's a nice little detail. Her tarima and zapateado dance shoes are in the collection of the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History. How cool is that? Yeah. Traci Kato-Kiriyama. Yeah, she has so many things. She's a poet, she's a writer, she's an actor, she's an arts educator, she's a community organizer. We just learned a few minutes ago that she's a reader on audiobooks. How about that? She's a director and co-founder of the amazing Tuesday Night Project, and which presents the Tuesday Night Cafe series, which is the longest running Asian American produced mic series in the United States. Traci's book is going to be published by the Writ Large Press a few months from now, so stay tuned on that. And she's presented as, a performer, poet, theater deviser, guest lecturer, speaker, facilitator, MC, and artist in residence all over North America. So welcome, Traci. Welcome, Marta. Again, you all have worked together extensively over the years. I just know that this is going to be a great conversation. I'm going to ask Traci and Marta to start out by reading each of you a passage that you've chosen from Nobuko's book. And I'm very keen to see what you've chosen. And then maybe each of you tell us why you chose what you chose. And I think Nobuko and I are both sitting here thinking, what did you choose? So let's hear it. Yeah. Who would like to start? Traci, Marta, who would like to start? Traci?
I'll start.
Okay, good.
This is so awesome. I mean, Nobuko, look at that. Look at this. It's just such an amazing feat. I was just talking to a friend yesterday about how hard it is to write a freaking book. And I can only imagine what it was for you to excavate and dig out your life and put it onto paper. And even though that it's so chock full, I can also tell that you had so many other things that you had to keep moving past, right? So it's just really amazing. And so I wanted to read a little bit from chapter 35, starting on page 280, the first chapter, which is titled Black Lives Matter. So it begins, It seemed like every day there was another story in our morning paper about a Black man, a Black kid, or even a Black woman killed by the police. Then there was the 2015 slaughter in the church in Charleston, South Carolina, that spilled all over our kitchen table. Most elders over 100 aren't interested or aware of such matters, but that's not my mom, Mamie. Having Tarabu's mother live with us during Buffalo's winter months from mid-December and until mid-May for more than 20 years, I'm so sorry. Let me just pause my cat here.
Love the cat.
That's going to happen. Having Tarabu's mother live with us during Buffalo's winter months from mid-December until mid-May for more than 20 years was a gift that put me next to a century of U.S. history and a special kind of wisdom. Mamie Kirkland crossed over in 2019 when she was 111, but her spirit is still a strong presence in our lives. And then I wanted to fast forward to page 284, where you talk about once you got to Ellisville, you had taken the trip to acknowledge a lynching that happened to John Hartfield in Ellisville and Jackson, Mississippi, and maybe actually had a connection to that story and knew about this. So
Yes.
Two African-American lawyers from the Equal Justice Initiative, Jennifer Taylor and Kiara Boone, came to interview Mamie as a rare lynching survivor. The organization was in the process of creating the Legacy Museum in Montgomery, Alabama, a place full of sites that told a story. The river where boats unloaded with the enslaved, who walked up to the square where families were separated from their children and sold. Across the street, the bus stop where Rosa Parks climbed onto the infamous bus. A couple of blocks beyond, the Dexter Avenue Church, where Martin Luther King Jr. directed the 1956 bus boycott. The Legacy Museum is in a former slave storehouse, where they now connect slavery and lynching from the Jim Crow past with systemic racist policies that keep more Black men in prisons today than there were slaves in 1850. We would later go to Montgomery for the opening of the museum, where her story is preserved, and see the National Memorial for Peace and Justice, a 6-acre sacred site that honors the thousands of men, women, and children who were lynched between 1877 and 1950. To see each of their names listed on what looks like majestic hanging tombs, including John Hartfield's, made this horrific legacy too real for me. Kamau once told me that you can't know the American story until you know the Black story. Our country cannot be whole until we are able to reckon with and heal from this brutal past. So I wanted to read that, and there are like three main things, and I just kind of jotted some bullet points to keep myself on task. You know, I think a lot about, my friend Sefa always says this, and I say it now too a lot, that every interaction is an opportunity. And I feel like you are always, even in the song that was playing earlier, you're always learning. You're not claiming an age, because you're changing all the time, and you're learning all the time, and you're really present with everybody around you. And I think I know that a lot of us, we also learned that from Yuri, right? And Yuri, her ability and willingness and wantingness to just be so present, because she was soaking up information and building relationships all the time. And how you quote your son and the way he has taught you, and how you learn from Mamie, you learn from Kamau, you learn from your granddaughter and your grandkids, right? So I thought about that. And then I was thinking about, you know, a lot of the work that we're focused on in Nikkei Progressives right now is, you know, various areas, and I'm particularly very focused on reparations work. And solidarity work with that, and our studies of, you know, like the need for abolition, the need for reparations. And we hear a lot about healing and reconciliation. And I really think that we have to include reckoning in that. And that the work of reckoning is a part of the process of healing. You know, healing is not a linear process, right? And I think in the process of reckoning in action, we show up, we live and breathe in solidarity. And that kind of work is part of healing, right? People showing up together that's healing for me. You know, I feel like it's healing for all of us collectively doing this work together when we see each other showing up day after day, week after week, season after season, dedicated to each other and the process of doing better and being better and calling for new things to be created, right? So, you know, I'm just thinking a lot about solidarity, you know, and what I feel like you in practice, have taught me that solidarity is not allyship. It's not unidirectional. It's not charitable. It is not someone doing for someone else. It is all of us working together, and we're elevating together because of the work. You know, it's us like really showing up. You know, a note that I made for myself, to me, like solidarity is, it's like a working practical application of our connection. You know, it's working practical application of our interconnectedness, of our interdependence. And, you know, when you said the quote, "Our country cannot be whole until we are able to reckon with and heal from this brutal past," the work that we're all doing, like our humanity as a people, as a society, is on the line, right? So I feel like we need each other. We need this work. Number 3, my last bullet point was, I love yakamashi people. Yakamashi means noisy, you know? And Nobuko, you're one of my first teachers in the theater where I was like, an elder, yakamashi, like just bold, fierce storyteller and person and woman and Japanese American. And so, you know, I think you and Marta, you're both, you know, part of my legacy of noise. Like creative collective noise. And I'll just say this real quick before I pass it to Marta. Marta, I don't know if I've ever actually talked with you about this, but my first memory of meeting you was back at the PRC in Highland Park when I was doing like Romeo and Juliet, Pinoy Pinay style with Here and Now Theater Company.
Wow.
And we had a conversation about stuffed animals. You had like, you liked, I don't know why I brought like this like otter. I brought a stuffed otter and you were so enamored with my stuffed otter. We talked obviously about other things, but that's one of my first memories. So it goes back that far. That's the 90s in Los Angeles, which was one of my big influences for Tuesday Night Cafe. You know, spaces like, so both of you bringing together people very intentionally, very deliberately, and like just crossing lines and just, you know what I mean? So.
All right. Thank you, Traci. Oh my God. That was beautiful. That was perfect.
Oh man!
I
remember that. Oh my God, dude! I had not made that connection. That's crazy. I remember that play. It was the best. You guys are so good. I remember you did this whole fight scene to like Under Pressure. That was the best. But I don't want to go off on a tangent. I fell in love with that song because of that fight scene. I was like, yeah, who was that? That was amazing. And I was like, song, did they write that song? And I was like, no, that's Bowie. And like Queen. I was like, oh shit, okay. Anyhow, I always see that fight scene when I listen to Under Pressure. Anyhow, okay. I'm gonna go to chapter 27. It's called Yui Yo, Just Dance. And I'll tell you why I love this chapter. Well, I love so many chapters. There were so many things I learned about Nobuko that I didn't know. And I'm so appreciative of, and I'm so appreciative that she took the time to stop what she's doing. It wasn't even during the pandemic because she's so busy and she's always up to something. And always pulling you in, as Traci just mentioned, into things that you didn't even know about. But just to know that she stopped for a moment and wrote down her life.
No, 5 years.
Okay. Either way,
counting.
It took time here and there in 5 years, on top of building Fandango Bon, right? And other things to do this. And I know so many elders that aren't taking the time to do that. And that, I feel, is robbing us and future generations of really knowing that deep thought that goes into this work that we see and we feel, right? And that is a gift because, you know, God forbid we don't have you, tomorrow or the next, in the future. And we all know our time is limited here. And if we don't have these important thoughts, we don't, we can see the work and it's important, it's impactful, but for artists and thinkers like us, we need also that backstory, right? We need to know what you were thinking when you were going through this and building. So this was really great to see. And it's on chapter 221, and it says, in page 221, chapter 27, like most Asians born in America, my experience was a weird mix of being drenched in American culture, yet not accepted by it. The same applied to my artistic training and work experience. In songwriting, I used the contemporary musical forms that I was familiar and comfortable with. In 1984, my comfort zone was challenged by Reverend Moss. I want you to write an obon song in English. Obon is one of the most important rituals in the Japanese Buddhist traditions that we've managed in our 100 years in the United States, the remembrance of ancestors. We may not speak Japanese, we may not know how to cook traditional Japanese food, but we love to put on our happy festival jacket or yukata, cotton summer kimono, to dance in the circle of Obon. In Japan, Obon happens in mid-August when folks return to their hometowns, clean their family graves, and offer incense and flowers. Then they gather at a temple to make music and dance, sometimes all night for a few days. Here, Obon festivals are celebrated at different temples from the beginning of July until mid-August, so families can visit one another's temples to renew friendships and maybe get their kids hooked up. In Japan, where dancing lasts into the night, it used to be one of the rare unchaperoned moments. I'd heard that many marriages are made and babies born 9 months after Obon. And so I'm going to skip a little bit to this part. This is a chapter that goes on to talk about how, and we don't know this until we read this, that Nobuko was involved in the Columbia Picture presentation of The Karate Kid 2 in 1989, where the music coordinator calls her and wants her to bring Yui-Yo to the screen, which is Yui-Yo is a tune that you wrote, right, Nobuko? Is that
It's
right?
it's the first song that in English that
That's
I wrote.
the first song,
Yeah.
which is an assignment by Reverend Moss, right?
Right.
So, then this happens, right? And if you've ever seen Karate Kid 2, you see a scene where there is an Obon situation happening there, right? Okay, so then she says on page 225, they opened again with the respect for tradition, these Hollywood people, right? Then proceeded to inform me that those white and black cotton kimonos wouldn't read well on the big screen. They asked if we could get the dancers to wear colorful silk kimonos, their own kimonos. I told them, it's summer, it's hot, the tradition is cotton. They pleaded. I told them I'd go to my community and ask. The community said, okay, fine, sure. They were willing to do that. Jose Luis and I went to the 3 temples and asked each dancer to bring a couple of their own silk kimonos so we could choose the best colors. Then another call came from the producers. They wanted me to deliver a tape of the song to Bill Conti, the film's music composer. He lived in Hancock Park, a gated community not far away from my home. They wouldn't let me in the gate. I had to leave it with the gate man. Then a week before the shoot, I got another call. In a final production meeting, they told me we'd be doing the dance to a click track. I paused, knowing a click track just gives a beat without music. So to keep people in time. Wait a minute, I said. Why a click track? We have the music. They said, because Bill Conti is going to write the music. I said, Bill Conti? He doesn't know anything about Obon music. That music, which I wrote with Reverend Moss, goes with the dance. The dance goes with my music, they said. My music. They said Conti had the option. It was in his contract, which means in addition to him writing the score, he gets royalties for writing the song. I said, that song doesn't belong to me. It's part of the Buddhist tradition. It belongs to the community. It belongs to the dance. Aren't you the producers? They said, yes. I pushed, don't you have the last say? Yes. Well, I countered, just tell him you're using the original music. Then my mind slowed way down. I got it. I saw the picture. They wanted the big finale for their film. They wanted to get 300 dancers with ready-made choreography in their own silk kimono costumes on the set. They saved them oodles of time and money. They didn't give a shit about Obon. They didn't give a shit about being authentic if they were going to have Bill Conti write the song. They wanted a village. They wanted those 300 dancers on that screen. At that moment, I realized I didn't give a shit about this Hollywood movie. I didn't give a shit about the money, even though I sure could have used it. Something else was more important. That song, that dance, and my community were connected. And I wasn't going to let them take it apart. Suddenly, it became extraordinarily easy to stand up and say, well, if you don't use my music, you don't get the 300 dancers. I walked out of the office, and I didn't have to look behind me to know their mouths dropped wide open. Right? Basically said this, and I can show it because I'm not saying it, but the way I connect to this is understanding and knowing that at that point, I feel like Nobuko really expresses to us how that shift, right? And something you see throughout, how Hollywood consistently offends and takes and is extractive and is oppressive in all of these different ways throughout her life, and how has slowly deconstructed and learned and challenged and pushed back and created her own world and her own sense of artistry and with dignity, not the way Hollywood has always tried to barrage her, right? And you see these stories throughout, and they're so inspiring. And then she finds community, and I'm not going to tell you, but there's such interesting and beautiful stories, and stories that I connect to because I myself have that experience. I started off also as an actor, a young actor, singer in Hollywood, right? Watching Hollywood, tear apart people like Paul Rodriguez, in early days, and me being a child actor and being subjected and sexualized early on to the point where I took myself out of music. I took myself out of acting because I didn't want to play a maid. I didn't want to play, all of these other roles that would come my way. And, and just having had that experience, and also having found community that really thought of art and music in a different context, were really inspiring, and to all of these years later, find each other has been inspiring for me, to know that there have been women, strong women of color and strong Asian American women that have been doing this. I wish I would have found Nobuko earlier in my life, but I'm so grateful that we found each other now, and that I've learned from her all of these years, and to know that I can always go to her for advice, and go to her, if not in person, in her book, to see how she's thinking, how she's thinking things through, what her motives were when in whatever move she made in Hollywood or in community, and how important it was, and all the things that she was balancing out, including motherhood, right? And so I'm a mother of a son as well. That's another connection that we have. But it's been really beautiful to be a part of her life and be taken into her fold and into her community. And how my son has been also mentored by Nobuko. And it's just such a blessing. And I connect with that story in so many ways. I have also been, like I said, given the middle finger in so many different contexts, and to the detriment of an economic, some would say economic ruin, but never, because my community always has me, and we continue to create the music and the art that we want, and not the one that Hollywood is trying to feed us. So
I want to just enter you both. It's so beautiful to hear you read the book, because that's the first time I ever heard somebody else read. And I know it's not easy to do it, because when I first tried it, Deborah had to tell me, she said, don't read it like you just want to get it over with. So it's good to have somebody else.
Did I do it justice? I had to put some character into it. I was watching you do your thing and walking out. I love it. It's so beautifully written, Nobuko.
Well, I want to read something that, because we're all community artists, so I want to be the third person to read, and I want to, because I want to say that being a community, at the beginning of being a community artist, I have to give credit to Reverend Mas Kodani and Senshin Buddhist Temple. That not only did I literally am a community-based artist. I literally was invited into the temple and given a space, which is a very rare thing. And I just wanted to read a little bit of what that means, what it meant to me, and what it can mean to any artist, to be not in that adulated place as, you know, in the films or the Broadway, but to be embedded in community. So Senshin Buddhist Temple was a space like no other. It was our temple of the arts. The social hall was once a temporary shelter, a safe place for our people returning from camp. If that floor could talk, it would tell us stories of what it was like to be in Manzanar, Poston, Tule Lake, how it felt to return without a home, afraid to go grocery shopping in the LA streets alone. They slept and showered there, cooked, cried, laughed, and talked story in the same kitchen where we made tea for our rehearsals. Now it was my shelter too, a place that held our history, our traditions, a safe place to grow my child. It was the first time I ever felt rooted without looking to, it was the first time I felt rooted. Senshin gave us a womb to birth new ideas, to sing unsung stories, to leap without looking, to fall without breaking, and to get up again on bare feet that knew every squeak and splinter of that beautiful wood floor. Reverend Moss not only gave me a room of my own, he gave me a sacred space to share, to learn, to grow, and create a voice with other artists.
So, Nobuko, you write so beautifully. You write so beautifully. Oh my God, that's a very nice passage.
Yeah, and then we've all shared that space at Senshin Buddhist Temple, and it's because of that space at Senshin that I started writing Obon music, which you described the first moment, and then how that moment turned into sort of a crazy thing in Hollywood, and how, because I was part of that space, because I was part of that community, that I realized that it was easy for me to walk away. It was easy for me to do that. It wasn't a big, brave thing to do at all. I just said, this is an easy decision. You know?
I disagree with that. A lot of people who are trying to make it, they think like, oh, this is just part of paying your dues. Yeah. They will think that. They think that they have to swallow that pill, or they have to do that in order to, you know, the next time I get a choice, I'm going to do what I want to do. But that's just not... We know that that's just not true, right?
I want to go to a video clip. I want to go to a video clip because, in fact, all three of you have like put so much creative energy into creating alternative spaces. You know, sort of, you know, we're in SoCal, sort of refusing the might of, you know, corporate Hollywood, right, and creating alternative spaces. I'd like the audience to see a clip of the Fandango Obon project because all three of you appear in it. Let's watch it and then talk a bit about it.
Fandango Obon is a gathering of three distinct cultures: the West African, Mexican Son Jarocho culture, and the Obonodori, with Japanese Buddhist traditions.
This is our third year, and each year the circle is getting more and more diverse.
As long as the energy is really good, it's very simple to collaborate. And, you know, everyone has their own instruments from wherever their country is. They all have the same roots when you really think about it.
Fandango, Obon, Polycultural Remix, Jam and a Prayer, Angelino Souls, Transforming Ethnic Borders, Birthing a New World.
We're building an idea that it's a good thing for people of different cultures to come together and to convene in a way that's maybe unusual, actually, because they actually get to participate in another form that's different from theirs, but then they can also see, oh, you know, there's similarities about this too. We want people to feel comfortable crossing borders into other communities.
It don't matter who you are or what you do in your life. If you walk down that street and you see all these people right here doing this beautiful thing, oh, I swear
you're gonna want to jump in.
You're gonna feel it.
Yeah.
To go where you're going to find people from so many different ethnicities coming together and having such a wonderful experience.
Yeah! We hope that we will encourage other communities of color to really deal with stuff about the environment. That's what this is about, connection to the earth.
Instill in people the idea that anybody can participate, and they should. We're democratizing the arts. We're saying everybody should participate, and in a sense, this returns us to the circle of our origins, of our beginnings.
That's such a great, and that's 2015, right? Fandango Obon keeps going. You know, I mean, that was only the third of now, what, 8 times or something. Yes. Nobuko, walk us into Fandango Obon and tell us a bit about how and why Traci and Martha have been part of it from the beginning.
Well, it's really Quetzal's fault. I'm going to read you another little part of the book, actually, that started me. That showed me the similarity between Fandango and Obon, and this is at page 276. Quetzal invites me to a class of Fandango that he and Martha are teaching. When I entered the small theater, their class was in process. Quetzal approached me and put in my hands a jarana, a small handmade guitar. "Play," he commanded. I obeyed, stepping into the circle of jaraneros gathered around a wooden platform called a tarima. My fingers struggled to recall chords I'd learned on the ukulele, but I felt safe strumming with others. A singer, not Martha, the professional, but a community person, broke into verse, her voice becoming more confident as others sang in response. Martha slung her jarana behind her and stepped onto the tarima, wearing her black pumps with small straps that's now at the Smithsonian, right? She stomped out a simple rhythm, café con pan, and pulled me up for a try. Oh, I get it. We are the drum beat for the song. In the circle of more than 20, there were no observers. Everyone was participating, learning, playing, and having big fun. I can see how fandangos can be addictive, carrying on through the night. It hit me.
that this sort of is like obon. But in that tradition, the musicians play on the central platform, the yagura, and the people dance around it. As I left the class, I thanked Quetzal and Martha and threw an idea. What would happen if we put fandango and obon together? He said, yes. And that's how it all started. Then we went to Senshin, right? And we sat with Reverend Moss, and he sort of put the cultural stake in the ground. And he said, it shouldn't be a fusion. It should be a conversation. And that really told us that we each had to stay true to our own traditions, not just smush it together. And that song, even though it was in Spanish, English, and Japanese, became part of the Japanese obon tradition. It's performed all over the place, including at Nisei Week, in the finale of Nisei Week. And sometimes I've seen people, like at a funeral, after a memorial, jump up on stage, and somebody had the music, and everybody got up and danced on the stage together. And it really touched me that they own it. And even though we created it, we don't have to be in the room. And there's something so beautiful about that the people actually claim it for their own. And I guess that's what tradition is. People make a choice. Our community makes a choice of what they love, and then they carry it on. If it goes on and on, it has nothing. We don't promote it. We don't push it.
Exactly. Because it's not a product, right? It's not product as well.
That's right.
So it's I think it's really important. It's the same thing with fandango, right? Like it's almost like people, it resonates with the community, and the community decides if it's significant enough that it lives on, right? And so that's such an honor, and I'll never forget that. That was really for us not knowing anything really about obon, and when Nobuko invited us to go for the first time, he goes, "You have to come. It's very similar. The yagura's in the middle, but we dance around it, not on top, but there's music on top sometimes. And, you have to come to Senshin." And I remember parking and having to walk. We kind of parked in some high school or something. We had to walk to it. And as we were approaching, and the lanterns and the people and everybody was dancing, I was like, wow, this is amazing. I remember thinking, number one, why have we never seen anything like this before? And I just feeling kind of very similar feelings walking up to a fandango for the first time. That level of excitement where I just knew my life would change, because it was just like, of course, I remember thinking, of course other cultures have something like this. Of course, and then it just, Nobuko's just started, sowing seeds.
No, you guys are the seed sowers, and also because you theorize around it, which it's like you tell me what we're doing. You know what I mean? What I've been doing for the last.
I want to push in here because Nobuko, your entire book kind of builds up to Fandango Obon. It's almost like, it sort of culminates in this model for community-based for community-based arts, right? And, Martha, you would call this decolonial practice, I think, yeah.
Absolutely. I think that, the way in which, people are used to, I think our music, the way we experience music and dance, they're commodities, right? You pay a ticket to go see a concert, you're either the person giving the concert or you're the person listening and taking in the concert. That's very beautiful. And we're used to that kind of relationship, right? That transactional relationship with art, music, and culture in all these ways, right? You pay a ticket to see a show, it's all transactional, right? But rarely do we get to be a part of the actual music making and the dance making, right? With others and alongside others, right? With community, embedded in it, experiencing it all together at once, right? You don't have to be a professional. You don't have to have a title, right? You're required to, simply because you are a human being and you are humanity. right? And because we are creative beings at heart, right? And so this is all happening at once. And so that is like us undoing what capitalism has told us that we are not. You're not an artist. You are not, you're not getting paid to do this. You don't have a right to do this. You suck. And unless you're a child, right? We are always telling kids, okay, dance. And right, we allow them until they grow up and then you beat it out of them, which is so ridiculous.
Yeah.
We don't have these things in our culture where we do even, and doing them across cultural expressions. You don't have that. And so what Nobuko has done is sort of like reminded us like, hey, like we can all do this together. We put our practices together, and then we're bringing even other cultures, right? African-American, West African drumming and Sufi now. Like, I mean, all of these things are coming and together, and we're dialoguing across cultural divides and all of that. What has happened as a result of that is it's snowballing, and it's getting bigger, and we're having this conversation. It's so important, we're undoing.
Yeah. And that's collective self-determination, right?
Oh.
That act is collective self-determination, where it's not, the very acts we're talking about, Fandango Obon, Fandango itself, Nobuko, all of your practice, it's about, like, let's not say, well, those are the academics and they do this, and the artists do this, and the
Right.
mental health practitioners do this. I mean, we all participate in this process of doing. It's in the doing, right? And it's in the doing together. That's most important.
But also, I learned from Johanna and the West African group is that they've done studies that the drumming and the dancing and the movement actually synchronizes your brain waves. So people, as we're dancing, we're synchronizing. This goes into your cellular memory as well. So we're embodying other forms, and by embodying those forms, we're also embodying other kinds of thinking. Yeah. It's not just so. It's a very visceral experience to be part of this, and it is undoing, actually, to feel comfortable in the space with other people, dancing with people who are not the same as you, and feeling like we're connected, absolutely connected. In those moments, like when we were spinning and doing a hadra, and everybody was moving and journeying, and all of a sudden, I felt like, we lifted up off the ground, 400 people turning around and just turning in their own circle. And then I felt something change in the atmosphere.
I got chills. I remember thinking like, whoa, this is like, I remember that.
It felt like the world slowed down just for that moment. And that's the magic of, that's what art can do, but doing it together as a community is rare. To have that experience. So what does that say to us? If we can do that together, what else can we do together? It's asking us that, it's reminding us that. And so we're going back to the very basic, way that people once gathered in the circle, and we're reimagining how that circle can be used, and in radical imagination, right? This is reimagining. Yes.
I'm so curious.
I just want to be very clear, Nobuko, that it's not simply a return to, things from the past. You are generating a new set of strategies that are needed at this moment in time, to address these specific pressures and crises before us,
Yes.
And these are actual strategies. These are not just, just feel-good events. So they are certainly that too, We should try to get to audience Q&A sometime in the next 5 minutes. So I guess I'm wondering, do we want to show another video, or do we, I love where we're talking at the moment. Do we want to keep talking about cross-cultural convening?
I think it would be hard to jump, even though that video is really fun. But I don't know.
We can drop the link into maybe people can watch it on their own. What do you think?
Yeah.
Cycles of Change, just to let people know, is how Martha and I really got to know each other by performing and writing a song about bicycling and doing a music video called Cycles of Change. And that's also when
we got to know family. Like I got to know Sandino because he was in it, and Quetzal, and you got to know my family. And that's what a lot of this is also about, intergenerational. Traci, I knew your parents, I know them. And my son, you work with my granddaughter. So all of these things are becoming networked or woven together, things that maybe started off separately, but now are beginning to show that these many roots are really entangled. And that's what we do with Fandango Bone, because we're looking deeper and realizing, yes, we've had tangled roots for a long time. We just don't pay attention to it. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're just trying to get people to do, is pay attention to what already is, even, Mm-hmm. And that is a strategy. And we're discovering our strategy as we go along. I mean, it's sometimes you stumble into it, right?
I was going to say that, and even like, I'm glad that you mentioned the cycles of change. That is based on getting people to really think about the environment, and right. So much of your artistic work always reconnects us to think about. It's not just cycles of change, right? It's also the Waribashi video, and like and all so many others, right? That was one strategy that you were always doing, and the same thing with Fandango Bon. Like, it's always connecting the workshops prior to the actual day's event, including the day's event, always have like this environmental justice analysis, different tables. People, as we're dancing, we're also learning about the environment, thinking about it, finding new ways of creating, more sustainable practices in gardening, and like, I mean, so many different things getting us to. So it's in Spanish we call it plan con maña, which means that a plan with like that's I don't even, somebody in the, I hope Sue's still on here. Maybe she could translate better, but it's like a plan. Like you're doing this. You're inviting people to come and dance and connect, and all of that cellular stuff is happening. But also there's like it's not just, oh, everybody come and just sweat a little bit, everybody go home. Like, no, like there's like deep thinking and learning and doing that's also happening. It's not just all fun and games. There's some serious stuff going on too,
Mm-hmm. No, and also it was a way to gather a lot of activists, environmental activists in communities of color, because so many people are doing deep work about pollution, environmental justice, because our communities are the ones that have been hit the most with environmental injustice, and they've organized around it. And it was once true that the environmental movement was mostly white people, and in the last 15 years we've shifted that around, and it's just finding a way. I think Fandango Bon was a way to find a space to gather all those forces together.
Exactly. Yeah. One of the things I love about the three of you and the scenes that you represent and how your scenes, intersect, is that you're doing all of this like amazing, innovative stuff. And, a lot of it has very deep intentional roots in traditional practice in one sort or another. There's kind of this looking back in order to look forward kind of thing that goes on for all of you. And I have such respect for all of you because of that. I wonder, before we, in about the next minute before we turn to Q&A, do you want to say anything about what you've learned from one another as women of color? Because it's a lot of this is about the intersectional work that takes place, in those interstices. And it's not only about gender and only about race. It's like about all of our forms of difference, right? Would any of you like to say anything about that?
I was so impressed when I first went to Tuesday Night Cafe, and to know that it's so, to see Traci in there, doing her thing, but also it's running again, living. The community has taken us being run without her. Absolutely. And I know it's not just, hasn't just been her, but and I'm sure she would say this, but just to see the enthusiasm and how welcoming everybody is. The circle they do before for the performers or the people that are going to say and share, how they set it up, like all of the culture around the unity and the welcoming is so, I was so impressed with it. And then the community, how the community shows up, to me, it was just incredible. And I was planning to be more in there and just learn, watch how she organizes and how inspiring it is. And then to know that we've definitely connected in all of these different events, but also, you know, just really trying to learn more from her and pulling her into my classroom. You know, all of these different things have been really impressive to watch. And just, I have to, if it wasn't for the pandemic, I'd be there more often. And I know they've been taking place even in Zoom, of course, but so much has happened. But I really, I'm impressed so much with what you've been doing, Traci, and how connected you are, how respected you are. You know, my students are, I have a student who did this whole thesis around Tuesday Night Cafe, and yeah, it's beautiful. You know, it's beautiful. And she interviewed a bunch of different people, including Sean Miura, and so just knowing you both has been, and Nobuko, of course, I've said so much about her, but I just wanted to really focus on Traci as well right now, and say that I'm so grateful to know you both and to have learned so much from you in such a short period of time. And I look forward to, you know, the future. You know, it's not easy finding strong mujeres like yourselves that are in it, you know, in a way that is just an extremely with amazing talent and power and presence. And so it's just inspiring.
Wow. Well, I feel the same. You know, I'm looking forward to more. I'm looking forward to the future. You know, I have to say, like, I don't know how many times in like community development, arts and culture discussions that I've been involved in, I've specifically brought up the work that you all are doing with Fandango Obon, and also the collective songwriting practice that you and Gonzalez have been doing for so long. And, you know, I think I saw a video a long time ago about the process. And so I'm always pointing people to that video and and talking about it. And then I never actually participated in a collective songwriting workshop till this year when we did it on Zoom. And I was like, see, this is what it is. This is what it's about. And you make it look so easy. And that's the other thing too, right? Both of you, when you're facilitating and you're teaching and sharing, you make it look really easy. And we were able to, folks out there, we were able to create a song within like 90 minutes with all of these people involved. When people always say, oh, you can't have too many people writing, you need one person at a time. Like, it busted right through that. Right. You know, we can do this. We can do it together. It's more fruitful when we do it together. But it also means you and Quetzal have developed like a way of practice that is so deep and so lived and so practiced that you can do it and make it look easy. But I know that it is not. It is really not. And so I have so much respect for just the work that you all have done and carried. And Nobuko, I just think, you know, you're an OG influencer. You know, these words that get tossed around, like, you know, let's just shift that right now, because you are.
That's right.
You have impacted untold amounts of people, individuals, families, communities. So I don't know what else to say.
I really want to bring in Deborah Wong as well, because she's trying to be all up on the side, trying to be all, honestly, that the kind of, to be an editor and to have gotten Nobuko to sit her butt down and write this, I'm sure
she did that all by herself.
I know she did that all on her own, but to be able to you know, really first of all, also advocate. I'm sure she didn't have to do much of advocating, because it's
true.
The powers that be would see this, but it also takes somebody to really put something also and help this along so that it gets done. And it's I just have to say that I know that Deborah does that work in the academy for all of us. She's done it for me. She's done it for so many, and I just want to give her a shout out as well.
That's very kind. Thank you. But I mean, this is really about the same strategies that are at work in community arts, right? You know, it's about lifting up everyone, right? It's about, you know, None of us are free until all of us are free. These kinds of, basic moves that enable all voices to be heard in the end. And I really want to make it very clear that Nobuko wrote every word of this book by herself, and then she revised the whole darn thing when they told us that 30,000 words needed to be removed and so on and so forth. She did it all herself. Yeah.
Oh,
amazing.
Hardly even
I want to say one more thing about this work. It takes clarity and integrity. This is not just like, I know a lot of people think that, what we do is kind of hippy dippy and, feel good and, trying to be all inclusive, but it comes from a place of like deep rooted, grounded clarity. Like, I know why I'm doing this. I know who I want to do this with. I know my shortcomings and how to bring in more people. Right. I know how and why and all the things. So I just think that there's so much to be said about like this is very deliberate, very proactive, very clear work.
There you go. Well said.
Let me just say, as the OG here, I just and I say that's the old girl in me. But no, I want to say that you are examples for somebody like my granddaughter to look around and see what you do and your examples. You're the ones that she could look at and say, I want to do that, or I can do that. And I didn't have that when I was growing up in that same way. I didn't have radical envisioning women to look at until I met Yuri Kochiyama. And that did change my life until I met Grace Lee Boggs, and that did change my life. So having you, which you're the age of my son, and you're like my children. You could be my children, and to know that you exist and that you are influencing so many more people to think in progressive ways, to know that that they can forge ahead and make change in this world. We need more changers. We don't need more leaders. We need more changers. We need more people who believe. Like, we need more community artists. We don't need more stars. We need more community artists. We need more people in the field doing what we do. And because we touch people deeply, it's not just, and we do it often. So we're in touch with people, and people need that to grow well. For young people to grow well, they need to look around them and see this is a possibility for their lives. So thank you for all of you for being who you are. And I just feel lucky that I stumbled into your lives.
I don't think it was stumbling, but I agree. We need to close this out. I'm so sorry to say that went by in a flash as far as I'm concerned. We need to do 3 things. I think we need to hear Nobuko read the end of the book, if you're willing. Then we'll bring Rita back on to sort of, close things out. And then we're going to have our outro will be the main song from Fandango.
Well, we're not going to have a
take a picture of this. Can we take a picture first?
I think that's a great idea.
Please? Okay, I'm going to try to get my phone. Hang on. We need to post this. When are you going to read your book again, Nobuko?
I don't know when. When is the next one?
Soon. I forget.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. We're not going to have a Q&A. Are we having a Q&A or not?
We could have answered things in the chat as they came up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just, it's been a tough year for everybody. I just want to acknowledge that. And yes, it's great that we can be in touch with Zoom, but it's been very difficult for us as artists to figure out how do we, I don't want to use the word pivot. It's been used too many times. How do we adapt and how do we evolve the work that we are doing and still engage community, even though that we're really at a distance? So I'm going to read this about what Fandango is about. And then you're going to see an example of how we've adapted and engaged community in this moment of the pandemic. In an age which
in which most of us spend too much time observing the world through our rectangular devices, to step into the circle of Fandango Obon is a potent communal act. In this circle, we reclaim our power, our creativity. We make music with our own hands, our own voices. We circle the earth with our feet and remember we belong to it. In this circle, everyone is equal. Everyone is seen. Everyone has a place. In this circle, there are no borders, no us, no them. There is plenty of room for more circles. In this circle, we weave our many roots, knowing our diversity is our strength. In this circle, we are enacting the world we want to live in. In this circle. So,
thank you.
So this is what we did this last year to adapt to the world of Zoom.
I think Rita might want to come back on and
okay, let's have Rita.
Do the house.
Thank you, Rita. Thank you so much for having us.
Oh, no, thank you for the wonderful talk. I feel like I learned so much. And just looking at the chat, it seemed like everyone enjoyed the conversation as well. Yes. Again, we have signed book plates available for Not Your Butterfly. You can get them by clicking on the green purchase button directly below the viewer screen. It'll take you to our website. And when you're checking out your cart, just make sure to write signed book plate in the order comments. And also for those of you who tuned in late, I know some of you guys tuned in late. There will be a replay after this broadcast ends, so you will be able to watch the event from the very beginning. And I think that about covers it. Thank you all again. And I know we have an outro video, so let me go play that.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Give me one moment.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. My name is Nobuko Miyamoto. We're going to learn today a dance called Bambutsu no Tsunagari, which means 10,000 things all connected. Now, Fandango comes from Veracruz, Mexico. And Obon, of course, is from the Japanese tradition, which we dance in a circle to remember our ancestors. I'm going to teach you this simple dance, only 4 steps, very easy, okay? So this is the fun part. You are going to put yourself before your camera and you're going to shoot yourself doing the dance.
Circle, dance, wani odoru. For this, you plan, you lose.
Okay.
For this, you plan, you lose. Don't plan, just dance. Practice, forget. For this, you plan, you lose. Hey.
In the circle we dance, no beginning, no ending. In the circle we dance, I am you, you are the other me. Bambutsu no tsunagari, bambutsu. Bambutsu no tsunagari, no tsunagari. Bambutsu no tsunagari, bambutsu. Bambutsu no tsunagari, no tsunagari.
Hey, carácter ceremonial, el fandango rompe el orden, celebración especial, en donde las almas borden con sus ritmos, melodías, que el día de hoy celebramos, ancestral sabiduría, con la cual nos abrazamos.
Bam, bam, butsu. No tsunagari, bam, 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 butsu. No tsunagari, bam, 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 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No In the circle we dance like the moon and the sun. In the circle we dance, let our hearts be the drum. Bambutsu no tsunagari, bambutsu, bambutsu no tsunagari, no tsunagari. Bambutsu no tsunagari, bambutsu, bambutsu no tsunagari, no tsunagari. Hey, la lo li, la lo le lo le lo le lo la. Empecemos a remediar con los ancestros del don. Empecemos a remediar con los ancestros del don. Que es tiempo de celebrar la vida en fandango boy. Que es tiempo de celebrar la vida en fandango boy. No tsunagari, bam bam bam. No tsunagari, bam bam bam. No tsunagari, bam bam bam. No tsunagari. In the circle we dance to remember the day. In the circle we dance. Oneness is moving. Bambutsu no tsunagari, bambutsu, bambutsu no tsunagari, no tsunagari.
Come back. Sente. What, you want more?